Okay, Joel went. Again, we've been talking about corporations and talking about certain legal constraints on the officers of the corporations in conjunction with an idea of due diligence. And of course, that's not the only kind of thing that applies to the situation. We just have to realize that people running these corporations are constrained by certain rules of law that affect the way they behave. And of course, we're aware of certain kinds of things that they do with that are related to their behavior that's we could say is their self-interest. The people running corporations have a self-interest, and this self-interest has varied somewhat because over time people have found ways to get more money when you run a corporation. And we're aware of this. We're aware of the huge salaries now paid to people that run corporations. We're aware of the bonuses to people in the upper levels. We're aware of all this stuff, and we understand human motives enough to be a little bit disturbed by it because, my goodness, these people make a lot of decisions, and they make a lot of decisions that benefit themselves. And very often in certain corporations, there's been, the situation with Enron and Ken Lay and all the rest of those kinds of things, where corporate leaders basically fabricated the information within the corporation. They lied to their own people working within the corporation in order to make certain things look different or better or whatever, so that the stock price would not fall, and they could get their stocks that they received for their performances and the implied by their contracts, and we all know this kind of thing that's going on. So we not only have corporation leaders influenced by the legal system, which says that you've got to take care of your shareholders. You have corporations influenced by the greed of the people that manage them, because their own self-interest very often lets them make a lot of money if they don't exactly follow the rules of various kinds. And so this is another reasons we have for not quite liking corporations. But there are a lot of corporations where the people that run them, and this is usually the smaller ones, they're basically trying to do good in some fashion, and they want to have a good business, and they want to take care of their employees, and they want to have a good product, and so on and so forth. So you can't just say the word corporation as if automatically that's a boogeyman. All right, but there is something else that we need to become aware of, and that's the fact that the mega corporations, the international corporations, and to some extent this has been done on purpose, and if you want to get into how it's been done or what the lawyers have to do with it, and you want to shoot all the lawyers, well, that's understandable. In any event, corporations have become, shall we say, somewhat independent of the people. Now let's go back to what I talked about in the last video, which is social form, which has two ideas, social and form. Okay, so the corporation is a kind of form, and it's structured a little bit according to laws and generally understood principles of how you would operate a business using that kind of legal structure. And it's also structured according to the inwardness of the human beings that manage the company in terms of their own motives, whether they're greedy or honest or whatever. Okay, so we have that. So you have the form, and you have the social element, what the people do within the form, and these combine together to make a particular corporation function in a particular way. Now, these very, very large corporations that have been in existence for some time and make a lot of money reward the people within the money-making aspects of the corporation to the extent that they make the corporation more successful. And one of the ways that corporations have found to be more successful is through finding ways around the laws that constrain them. And there's different ways they do this. You know, that we know about offshore tax havens and all of that kind of stuff. And all of this is important. But another thing we need to recognize is that the huge international corporations have, through their influence, and this is through a kind of corrupting influence of political bodies. you can look at this history, you can see how the corporation more and more is freeing itself from the nation state. That is over the 20th century. The corporations, which were at one time totally limited by the structure of the laws of where they were incorporated, were able to manifest themselves internationally in such a way that more and more they became independent of the nation state. And because of their wealth and their relationships to people in government, they were able to influence the situation in such a way that they could look at the dynamics of it, and they could say, oh, well, we can get this advantage by doing this, and we can get this advantage by doing this. And one of the advantages for them that satisfies their need for greed and also for profitability, these demands that come from people and also that come from the fact that the shareholder values are higher than the consumer and the customer and the worker and the environmental values, the corporation wants to have a certain autonomy from as much restriction as possible from the nation state. And the way this has been done in the last part of the 20th century was through influencing the government to form certain kinds of treaties. So if you look into this situation, a lot of people are aware of this, these international treaties that are connected somewhat with the World Trade Organization and other things like that have actually allowed the corporation to become free of the restraints of nation states. So for example, if Massachusetts wants to pass an environmental law to restrict a corporation, the corporation goes to the World Trade Organization and says, according to our trade agreements that we have internationally among the nation states, the state of Massachusetts can't force us to obey this environmental law. Right? Well, people that are in the know of these things are aware of this, and of course we have to recognize that when we look at something like this, we're looking at a process by which the form is emancipating itself from the legal restrictions. Now, how is this happening? What's going on here? The human beings within the form, the social part of the social form, are behaving according to the normal impulses of human being, which is to a certain degree self-interest, and also to the legal structure which encourages them to hold shareholder values over other values. Okay, so the corporate entity, in pursuing these things naturally, has proceeded to a state of being where it's now emancipating itself from the nation state. But what is it about a corporation? What sort of characteristics and how does it get them that lets it approach the situation in this way? How does it come to manifest these things that a whole bunch of us see as evil and other people don't see because they're when they think about the corporation, they're thinking about something else. So I'm going to come back to you. We're going to do another one of these, and boy, oh boy.